Hello everyone, and this is part 2 in cost optimization. Well, we have covered a lot of a lot of details in previous video, but this one is something which is more relatable, and if you have been through the previous one, it will make more sense. Even if you have not gone through the previous video, but you are working as an Azure admin or cloud engineer or an architect, you could relate it because I'm picking the recommendations, which is absolutely common and people are using it all the time. So, or if they are not, you should recommend those. That's why it's called recommendation. So, hello everyone. My name is Arun. I'm solutions architect with Novintech, which is one of the best organization to work with, and I'm happy to be part of this organization. And let's start our video with all the recommendations that I have for you today. So, cloud, as we have concluded in the previous one, if you click anywhere, not exactly click, but let's make that mindset. Remember, we have to create that mindset. If you're creating any resource, if you are using internet on the Azure virtual machine or moving traffic or data from one to another, from on-prem to Azure or from one network to another, everything has some impact on the cost. So what we need to do, we need to choose the right sized resources. We can understand this with a simple scenario. For example, you have several virtual machines running in Azure, and you suspect that some of them are over provisioned. You could utilize Azure Cost Management to analyze your VM usage. You identify the VMs with high CPU and memory capacity but low utilization, and you can simply resize those VMs. You could also check the environment, if it belongs to a dev environment or stage environment or prod environment. So you need to do that analysis, and with the help of all those insights that you can get from the Azure Cost Management or Advisor, you need to select the right size for your VMs. Same applicable for any other computation that you're using. Gotta use the right size. For example, app services. There are the different SKUs. They are free, shared, standard, and premium. Even in premium, you have P1, P2, P3. So you got to select the right size as per your requirement. That's the first recommendation. Then always go with reserve instances wherever you have the predictable workload and you are aware. For example, you're running your mission critical application, which is high priority in production environment, and you have vision for that application for at least 5 or 10 years. What you gotta do, how could you save money? You can apply reserve instance for that application. Purchase Azure reserve instance, or you could save up to 70 or 72% by committing to an RI for 1 or 3 years. You could also utilize Azure saving plans, a flexible alternative to RIs, which offer savings in exchange for a commitment to a consistent amount of usage for a 1 or 3 year term. It's a little different. It's a not exactly reserve instance, but you get the savings on the commitment. Now, if you have something which is, uh, let's take a scenario to understand it better. You have an e-commerce website that experiences high traffic during holiday sales, but is relatively quiet during the rest of the year. Azure functions allow you to handle the surge in traffic without incurring constant VM cost. So, serverless computing I'm referring to. You have a web application with occasional traffic spikes. Do not spin up VMs to manage that spike or choose the highest queue app service to manage that spike. Utilize serverless. Use Azure functions for your web application backend. With serverless computing, you only pay for the compute resources consumed during function executions. But this choice is after proper analysis. right? Because you do not want to hamper any application or business. So there is a way of utilizing serverless computing, and you can save cost from that serverless computing, but after proper analysis. Now, another one is auto scaling. We all know how it works. Set up auto scaling rules for your not only virtual machines through VMSS, but you could also utilize Azure App Services with auto scaling or Azure Kubernetes for auto scaling. You got to configure rules to automatically increase or decrease the number of instances based on CPU usage, requests per second, or other metrics. During peak hours, your app automatically scales out to meet high demand, and during off peak hours, it scales in to reduce cost. So it is helping you in high availability, scalability, maintaining your performance of the workload, and simultaneously also saving cost. You could also utilize Azure automation to schedule and run tasks that can shut down or scale back resources during off hours. That's another option. You can put it here with the auto scaling or and automation maybe. Now, spot virtual instances. This is something that you could utilize. It is the unused capacity of Azure data centers. For the workloads, you could utilize this for the workloads that can tolerate interruptions. Use, for example, batch jobs. Spot VMs are significantly cheaper, but can be, uh, you can lose that VM on a short notice. So you should run those workloads on it, which can tolerate the interruptions. You have let's take an example of nightly data processing task that can run on spot VMs. If a spot VM gets preempted, the workloads automatically shifts to another available spot VM, ensuring your job completes. Utilize Azure Spot VMs for workloads that can handle interruptions. That's the keyword. They offer unused Azure compute capacity at a significant discount. So again, you gotta do the proper analysis and proper planning, because ultimately, if you could save cost by running spot instance, it would be a significant amount. Just think about it. For example, you could save some X amount in a day. It would be 30x in a month, and it would be into 12 in an year. So think from that perspective. Because if you're not gonna use Spot, you're gonna use regular VM, and that particular task you need for an year. So you have to compare with that amount. It would be significant. Then you want to track and allocate cost for different departments with the organization, because you need to organize resources. You got to apply tags to resources to categorize them by department, project, or cost center. Why we are doing this? Because we need the visibility. We need to know all those all those departments like marketing, sales, or development are in line with the budget, are in line with the allocated expenses. If needed, we could apply restrictions as well. Then resource policy is something which could help you uh, to apply rules and regulations, governance on the cost, implement Azure resource policies to enforce specific resource creation and configuration rules. For example, you don't want your team or your development team to create a huge virtual machine which can cost you a lot, or maybe don't want create VMs with premium storage to control cost. So maybe you don't want them to create uh, something which is very expensive in cloud, just to uh, just to do some XYZ task, right? So you want to apply those policies, or maybe some approval process in place. If something has a valid reasoning behind the request, of course you would allow that to happen, but you would not allow uh, to happen it on a regular basis. Then we must utilize Azure cost management and billing for budgeting or alerting or cost analysis purpose, because we should be aware how much cost is going to happen. So set budgets and configure alerts to keep track of spending. You don't want surprises at the end of the month because you have to pay that ultimately. So if you have then, if you keeping that tab, then of course it will help you. Or if you see within 10 days, if you have already touched your budget, you could simply go ahead and analyze who is costing that much and take the necessary steps. You could utilize this tool, cost management, to analyze and understand where and how you are incurring cost in such scenarios. You could utilize dev test labs to create and manage development and testing environment rather running on pay as you go. Set policies to automatically shut down VMs during non-working hours. With backups, you could have a different plan. For example, adjust the replication frequency and retention periods for geo redundant storage and backups to minimize storage cost. Because when we set up these policies, people think from the perspective, because everyone is coming from the on premises, so we think from that perspective, we want this, but you need to just take a step back, think properly, and then choose what data you need geo redundant, what data, how much replication frequency you actually needs, because everything has a cost. Then you need to think the data transfer cost, of course, because if you are egressing data, it would cost you. So use CDN for content distribution to reduce data egress cost. And of course, you don't want unused or unnecessary resources. You need to regularly review your resources and delete those that are no longer needed or have become obsolete. Then you could also utilize reservations for the past services like Cosmos and Azure SQL database. You could think about that as well, because buying reservation for Azure SQL DB could save you up to 33% of the cost of running your database. And if it's a production one, so you know it will be there because that's what the business needs. Then we need the tools like Azure Advisor to get the recommendation for the optimization. Regularly review recommendations from Advisor, and because which provides personalized best practices to optimize your Azure deployment. You could also leverage the Azure hybrid benefits if you have those licenses with you. Take advantage of hybrid benefits to apply your existing licenses to Azure virtual machines or SQL. And if you have, because you need to keep on update yourself with all those things which are coming in Azure. So evaluate your current service usage and consider migrating to the more cost efficient services. For example, if you're running web app on individual VMs, migrate to Azure App Service to benefit from a managed platform with auto scaling and reduce operational cost. And finally, you need to think for your networking cost. Monitor and manage outbound data transfer, as this can be significant cost. Use virtual network peering to connect Azure networks and reduce outbound data transfer cost. Though there is some little cost in the peering too, but it's very less as compared to outbound data. You could also utilize Azure Monitor and Log Analytics, these tools to monitor resources and optimize performance, which can also lead to cost savings. And storage, because everyone is going to use storage, and cloud started from the storage at the very beginning. So choose the right type of storage account based on the performance and access needs. For example, use blob storage for large amounts of unstructured data, and apply lifecycle management. Implement Azure blob storage lifecycle management policies to automatically move or delete data based on age or access patterns. Time, you could have a great communication with your customer. You could give those examples on the call and have a good impression with your customer. There is one more thing which can help us here, is considering using AKS and containerization for application, which are made in such a way that it can be containerized to optimize resource utilization and reduce cost, because not all applications are meant to be broken down and run on the AKS. If the application is such, go for it. Do not just keep stuck to the monolith and optimize your resource. Well, with all those recommendations, this is all about today's video. Thank you for watching, and you guys have a wonderful day.